At our daughter's wedding, my husband screamed, "Leave right now. Nobody wants you here making a scene." I walked away quietly, tears falling down my cheeks. The next morning, "Helen, I need the lake cottage keys. We're taking Lisa there for our vacation." I gave him the keys with a sweet smile. When they opened the special cabinet in the kitchen, they found a box full of letters explaining everything about what I knew. If you're watching this, please subscribe and tell me what city you're from. I'm Helen Martinez, 65 years old, and apparently the most HATED wife in Oregon according to my husband, Richard. But let me go back to show you how I got my perfect revenge on the man who forgot about me and the husband who turned his back on our marriage. The wedding should have been the happiest day of our lives. I spent 4 months helping plan every single detail from the cake design to the dinner menu. I even bought a lovely purple dress that matched Lisa's wedding theme. Everything looked beautiful until I walked into the ceremony hall. "Why is she here dressed like that?" Richard's voice was harsh and mean, cutting through all the happy conversations. He stood there in his expensive black suit, pointing at me like I was some embarrassing stranger. My husband, Richard, the man I'd been married to for 38 years, just stared at me with cold eyes. "She's our daughter," I said softly. "She wanted me here." "Our daughter?" Richard's laugh was cruel and cold. "The woman who keeps criticizing Lisa's choices. The woman who said Marcus wasn't good enough at the rehearsal dinner. I never said those exact words, but I did worry about them. What I really said was that I hoped Lisa had thought carefully about this big decision. I guess that made Richard really angry at me. "Get out of here." Richard suddenly yelled, his face turning red from anger and too much wine. "You're embarrassing us in front of everyone, and honestly, I don't want you here either. This is supposed to be their special day, not another time you ruin everything with your worrying." The entire ceremony hall went completely silent. 180 guests stared directly at me as tears rolled down my face. My own husband, the man I'd cooked for and cleaned for and supported for almost 40 years, was throwing me out of our daughter's wedding like I was trash. I didn't argue or fight back. I just picked up my small purse, walked to the exit, and left quietly. But as I sat in my old car in the parking area, watching through the windows as the celebration continued without me, something hard and angry grew inside my heart. If they wanted to treat me like I didn't matter, maybe it was time I showed them what that really meant. The next morning, Richard called me on the phone. His voice sounded different now, sweet and fake, the way it got when he wanted something from me. "Helen, I'm sorry about yesterday. I got too upset and said things I didn't mean. You know how stressful weddings can be for everyone." "Of course, dear," I said, even though my heart still hurt badly. "These things happen sometimes. Actually, Lisa and I need to ask you for something. Can we borrow the keys to the lake cottage? We want to take her there for a family vacation. The travel plans we made cost more money than we expected. The lake cottage, my father's old property by the water, worth about $2 million, which Richard thought would be his someday. The same place where I'd spent my happiest memories before my parents died. The same place where I'd hidden special things 6 months ago that would tell the truth. "Sure, darling," I said, making my voice sound extra sweet. "I'll have the keys ready for you this afternoon when you come." When Richard came with Lisa to pick up the keys, I saw how they both avoided looking at me directly. Good. They should feel ashamed of themselves. "Thank you so much, Mom," Lisa said in that fake nice voice she used when she wanted something. "This really means everything to us and Marcus." "Oh, you're welcome, sweetheart," I said, handing the keys to Richard with a big smile. "After all, we're family, right?" They drove away in Richard's new truck, laughing and talking about their fun vacation plans. I watched them leave, then went inside to check my notebook. The special things I'd hidden weren't just old papers and photos. They included letters explaining what I'd discovered and documents that would show the truth about Richard. I opened my memory box and looked at the copies of everything I'd hidden at the cottage. Papers and photos I'd been saving for exactly the right moment. A collection of evidence that was about to turn their vacation into the worst trip they'd ever taken. Because 4 months ago, I learned the real truth about my wonderful husband, Richard. And now it was time for him to learn what happens when you treat Helen Martinez like she doesn't matter. Let me tell you how I discovered what kind of man I really married. It started with a phone call that changed my entire world. "Mrs. Martinez, this is Linda Chen, and I'm calling about your husband, Richard. I think you should know something important about him and me." My stomach felt sick and twisted. This was 3 weeks before the wedding, and I was planting flowers in my garden when the call came. "What about my husband?" I managed to ask, my voice shaking. I've been seeing Richard for about 2 years now, meeting him at hotels and restaurants. He told me you two were getting divorced soon and he'd be free to marry me. He's been giving me money and promises. The name Linda Chen, a woman I'd never heard of before. I sat down hard on my garden bench, my mind spinning in circles. Who was this woman calling me? What lies had my husband told? How long has this been going on? I asked her. About 26 months now, maybe longer. He started coming to the gym where I work as a trainer. He said his wife didn't understand him anymore and they were living separate lives. He promised we'd be together soon. 26 months ago. Exactly when Richard had started going to that fancy gym across town, saying he needed to lose weight and get healthy. What a strange coincidence. Mrs. Martinez, I'm calling because I found out he lied to me. I saw your daughter's wedding invitation at his office yesterday. He's not getting divorced at all, is he? No, I said quietly. We're still very much married, and I had no idea about any of this. I felt like I might throw up or faint. My husband, my partner for 38 years, had been lying to both of us. Has he given you money? About $45,000 over the past 2 years. He said it was for our future together, for an apartment we'd share. But now I think he was just buying my silence and my time. I felt sick to my stomach. Our savings, money I'd helped earn from my job at the library, had been going to another woman. Do you have proof of any of this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Text messages, bank transfer records, photos of us together. I'll send them to you if you want. I can also meet you in person to show you everything. After Linda hung up, I sat staring at my flower garden, the pretty colors suddenly meaning nothing. 180 people were going to watch our daughter get married, and her father was a liar and a cheat. But how could I tell Lisa before her big day? She was so happy, so excited, and finding out about her father would destroy her. That's when I decided to find out more information myself. If Linda was telling the truth, maybe there was more I didn't know about. I called my friend Patricia, who knew about computers and investigating. Within 3 days, she'd found more than I wanted to know. Your husband, Richard, is quite interesting, Patricia said, spreading papers and photos across my kitchen table. He's been lying about a lot of things for a long time. I looked at the photographs carefully, my hands shaking. There was Richard, but looking happier than I'd seen him in years, at restaurants with Linda. This one, Patricia pointed to a photo of Richard and Linda holding hands, was taken at that expensive steakhouse downtown. 6 months ago on your birthday. He told you he was working late that night, remember? That's when I started crying. While I'd been home alone on my birthday, eating leftover cake by myself, my husband had been with another woman. It gets worse, Patricia continued. According to the bank records I found, he's been taking money from your joint savings account. About $53,000 total over 2 years. My hands started shaking even harder. Are you saying he stole from our savings? The savings we worked together to build? I'm saying he's been spending your money on another woman without telling you. Hotels, gifts, dinners, even a weekend trip to the beach last summer when he told you he was at a work conference. Patricia pulled out another folder. Then there's the really interesting part. I found messages between Richard and another woman named Jennifer from 3 years ago. Different woman, same pattern of lies. What do you mean, same pattern? He told Jennifer the same thing, that you were getting divorced, that his marriage was over, that he'd be free soon. He gave her about $30,000 before she figured out he was lying and stopped seeing him. I felt like the room was spinning around me. This woman, this man I'd married, had been doing this for years behind my back. And there was more evidence. The most important part, Patricia continued, is this recording I found. One of Richard's friends accidentally sent me a voice message meant for someone else. You need to hear this. The recording started playing and my eyes went wide. There was Richard's voice, but he was talking badly about me to his friends, laughing about how I was stupid and boring and didn't suspect anything. When was this recorded? I asked Patricia, based on the date on the file about 3 months ago, right around when you were planning Lisa's wedding and working extra hours to help pay for it. I stared at my kitchen table, looking at all the evidence of my husband's lies. Text messages, photos, bank statements, recordings. Everything proving he'd been betraying me for years. Can you make me copies of everything? I asked. Patricia nodded her head yes. What are you planning to do with all this? I smiled for the first time in days. I'm going to save myself, even if it means destroying the life we built together. The next 3 weeks before the wedding were the hardest of my entire life. Every day I watched Richard act like everything was normal and fine, and every day I knew the truth about what he really was. I tried one more time to talk to him, 5 days before Lisa's wedding. Richard, honey, are you sure everything is okay with us? Have we grown apart from each other? He barely looked up from his phone. What are you talking about, Helen? Everything's fine. Why do you always worry about nothing? Have you been happy in our marriage? Of course I have. Why are you asking these weird questions? Can you just focus on the wedding instead of creating problems? The lies came so easily to him like breathing air. And you haven't been seeing anyone else or spending time away from home. He finally looked at me, his eyes cold and angry. Are you accusing me of something? Because I don't appreciate being questioned like I'm a criminal. I work hard to support this family while you just read books at that library job. That hurt more than finding out about Linda. My own husband thought my job didn't matter and I didn't deserve respect. Richard, what if I told you I have proof that you've been lying to me? His face got hard and mean. I'd say you need to stop imagining things. You're getting paranoid in your old age, Helen. Maybe you should see a doctor about that. Next week after the wedding. That hurt even more. My own husband thought I was so stupid and crazy that he could lie right to my face. I would never lie to you about something this serious and important. Really? Then where's this proof you keep talking about? Show me right now. I hesitated. Showing him everything would start a huge fight right before Lisa's wedding, and there was no guarantee he wouldn't just lie more and say I faked it all. Richard had done an excellent job of making me look like a worried, jealous wife to everyone. I thought so, he said when I stayed quiet. Helen, you need to accept that I'm busy with work and I can't spend every minute with you. If you can't handle that, then maybe you're the one with the problem, not me. That was the moment I knew there was no saving our marriage. He would never admit the truth, never apologize, never change. But that didn't mean I couldn't be ready for when everything fell apart. The wedding planning kept going like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. Lisa asked for my help with small things, but it was obvious she liked Richard's opinions better than mine. Richard had clearly told her about our conversation because she started treating me like I was fragile and confused. Mom, you seem stressed lately, she'd say, patting my hand like I was a child. Maybe you should rest more and let Dad and me handle the big decisions. But I caught Richard smiling when she said things like that. Happy that he was turning our daughter against me slowly. 4 days before the wedding, Richard made his biggest mistake yet. He left his phone on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. I picked it up and saw a text message from Linda. Can't wait to see you next week after all this wedding craziness is over. I miss you so much, baby. He'd been planning to see her right after our daughter's wedding. While I'd be home cleaning up and feeling sad, he'd be with his girlfriend. That's when I knew exactly what I needed to do. I took photos of every message on his phone. Hundreds of texts between him and Linda, between him and Jennifer from before, between him and his friends, where he made fun of me. Then I put his phone back exactly where I found it. 3 days before the wedding, Linda called me again. She wanted to meet me for coffee, just the two of us. I know this must be so hard for you, she said, sitting across from me at the coffee shop. Finding out your husband has been lying for so long. It's hard for both of us, I replied carefully. He lied to you too. I want you to know that I never wanted to hurt you or break up a marriage. He told me you two were basically already divorced, just waiting for the paperwork. I believed him because he seemed so sincere and honest. That's what makes him good at lying, I said. He's had lots of practice over the years. Although, she continued, her voice getting quieter, I hope you understand that Richard has been very unhappy in your marriage for a long time. He told me you two barely talk anymore and you don't appreciate him. There it was, the lies he'd told her to make himself look like the victim instead of the cheater. I wouldn't expect him to tell you the truth, I said calmly. He's been lying to everyone, including himself. Linda, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you love my husband or did you love what he promised you? Her smile never changed, but something flickered in her eyes, something guilty. What a strange question. Of course I love him. Why would you ask me that? Because loving someone means wanting what's best for them, even when it hurts. And I wonder if you've ever loved anyone that way, or if you just love the idea of taking someone else's husband. Now she looked uncomfortable. I think that you don't know me as well as you think you do, Mrs. Martinez. You're absolutely right, I replied. I don't know you at all. But I know Richard very well, and he will do the exact same thing to you eventually that he did to me. The effect was like lightning. Her face went red and her hands started shaking. That's not true. He loves me differently than he loved you. Of course he does, I said sadly. Just like he loved Jennifer differently before you. She stood up so fast her chair almost fell over backwards. This coffee meeting is over right now. Sit down, Linda. We're not finished talking yet. She sat, but her eyes looked scared now. Here's what's going to happen, I continued calmly. You're going to help me show Richard who he really is. And in return, I'll make sure you get back the money he took from you. Why would I possibly help you? Because if you don't, I'll show everyone the text messages where you knew he was married but kept seeing him anyway. Your gym will fire you for having an affair with a married client. Your family will know what you did. Your friends will know what kind of person you are. She stared at her coffee cup, then at me, then back at her cup. What do you want me to do? I want you to tell me every lie Richard told you, every promise he made. Every time he said he'd leave me but didn't. And I want you to write it all down and sign it. And if I do that, you'll just forgive him and take him back anyway. I smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. No, Linda, I'm going to make sure he never lies to anyone ever again. She agreed, and over the next hour, she told me everything. Every romantic dinner, every hotel room, every lie Richard had told to keep her hopping and waiting. I wrote down every word, and she signed the paper at the bottom. But I should have known that confronting people about their lies would only make things more dangerous. The wedding day arrived, and Richard acted like nothing was wrong. He smiled at guests, hugged Lisa, and completely ignored me except to criticize my dress. 2 days after the wedding, when they'd come back from the lake cottage, everything would change forever. They showed up at my house on Wednesday morning, looking terrible. Richard's face was pale and sweaty. Lisa looked like she'd been crying for hours. I opened the door with my warmest, sweetest smile. Hello, you two. You're back early from your vacation. How was the cottage? You know exactly how it was, Richard said, pushing past me into my living room rudely. Lisa wouldn't even look at me directly. She stood in my doorway like she was afraid to come inside. I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean, I said innocently. Did something bad happen during your trip? The box, Helen, the box you left hidden in the kitchen cabinet. The box full of papers and photos and letters that we found. I gasped like I was surprised. Oh my goodness, was there an old box in there? I forgot I'd stored some things there years ago. How careless of me. Cut the act, Helen. Richard snapped at me angrily. You did this on purpose. Somehow you planned this whole thing to ruin everything. Richard, honey, I don't know anything about planning tricks. You know I'm not smart enough for that kind of thing. That's what you always tell me. But I'd practiced that speech many times with Patricia. She taught me exactly how to act innocent and confused. It was her, Richard said to Lisa, his voice shaking. She's been planning this for months. She knows things about my past and she's trying to destroy our family. What things about your past? I asked gently, though I knew exactly what things. Dad, if you have something you want to say about your past, now would be a good time, Lisa said, her voice breaking and sad. It's all lies, Richard said desperately. She hired someone to make fake papers, fake photos, fake everything. She can't stand that you love me more than her. I walked to my desk and pulled out the folder Patricia had given me. Perhaps these will clear things up and show the truth. I handed Lisa the file with copies of the bank statements, text messages, photos of Richard with Linda and Jennifer, and the signed statement from Linda. Lisa's hands shook as she read through everything, tears streaming down her face. Dad, what is this? Why are there bank transfers to someone named Linda Chen for thousands of dollars? I can explain everything, sweetie. And why are there photos of you with this woman at restaurants? Dad, who is she? And what's this about someone named Jennifer from 3 years ago? Lisa, please just listen to me carefully. She was crying harder now, her wedding makeup from days ago still smeared on her face. I was going to tell you everything eventually. I was scared you wouldn't understand why I did it. Understand what? I asked quietly. That you've been cheating on Mom for years. That you've been stealing money from your family to spend on girlfriends. That your real name is Richard the Liar. It's not what it looks like at all. Then explain it to us, Lisa said, her voice getting louder and more upset. Explain why Grandma Helen has bank statements showing you took $53,000 from your joint savings. Explain why there's a signed statement from Linda Chen saying you promised to divorce Mom and marry her instead. I sat down in my comfortable chair and watched my husband's lies fall apart like a house of cards. It was even more satisfying than I'd imagined it would be. Your mother hasn't appreciated me for years, he said desperately, trying a different lie. I was lonely and these women made me feel valued and important. By giving them our family's money. Lisa's voice was ice cold now. By lying to Mom every single day for years. I never asked them for anything inappropriate. They forced themselves on me because they felt sorry for how your mother treats me. And then they just happen to need thousands of dollars that you gave them from our savings. Richard looked at me with pure hatred in his eyes. Helen, where did you get all this information? How did you get these private papers? I hired someone to find the truth after Linda Chen called me. A private investigator who knows about computers and finding evidence. What phone call? When did Linda call you? I explained about the phone call, about finding out he'd been lying about getting divorced, about the pattern of giving money to different women over the years. But he didn't meet Linda by accident, Lisa said slowly, understanding finally. He went to that gym specifically to find someone new. Actually, I said gently, according to the investigator, he'd been going to that gym for months before he started talking to Linda, looking for someone who might be interested in a married man with money. Richard sank onto my couch like all the air left his body. You researched everything about my life and spied on me. Helen, how could you? I love you, he said, but I could hear the lie in his voice. Everything else was just mistakes I made because I was confused. You loved her. Lisa stood up, packing around my living room. Then why did you throw her out of my wedding in front of everyone? Why did you embarrass her and make her cry? That was different. I was stressed and upset. Different how? Because according to these text messages, you told Linda that same day that you couldn't wait for the wedding to be over so you could see her again. You were planning to cheat on Mom the day of my wedding. I hadn't told Lisa that part. She'd figured it out herself by reading Richard's messages. My daughter was smarter than I'd thought. Lisa, sweetheart, I know this looks really bad, but looks bad. She practically shouted. Dad, I just read messages where you called Mom stupid and boring. Where you laughed about how easy it was to fool her. Where you said you were only staying married for the money from Grandpa's cottage. That part made me cry new tears. All these years, he'd only stayed because of my inheritance, not because he loved me. You used her, Lisa said quietly, her voice filled with hurt and anger. We used each other, Richard replied, trying one last lie. She got security and a home. I got someone to cook and clean. That's what marriage is, a business arrangement. Did you ever love Mom at all? Even in the beginning. He was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him deciding whether to tell the truth or keep lying. I loved the life she could give me when we got married. Her father's cottage, her family's respect, the future we could have together as a proper couple. But love her, really love her. I don't think I'm capable of loving anyone that way. That was the moment my heart truly broke into tiny pieces, not when I found out about Linda. Not when I read his mean messages, but when he admitted he'd never loved me at all, not even when we were young. I want you out of my life, I said quietly, surprised by how calm I sounded. This isn't your house to kick me out of, he replied meanly. Technically, I own half of everything, and given what I know about inheritance laws, I'll own half of that cottage soon too. The threat was clear and scary. He was going to try to take everything in the divorce, including my father's cottage. Richard looked at Lisa desperately. Sweetie, you understand, right? Your mother and I just aren't compatible anymore. Don't call me that, Lisa said, her voice cold as ice. You're not my dad anymore. You're just Richard, the man who lied to everyone who ever trusted him. For the first time in months, my daughter was on my side instead of his. First, I said calmly, you're going to move out of this house today. Then you're going to cancel any credit cards you share with me. Then you're going to admit to your lawyer that you stole money from our joint account, and we'll see what happens next. You can't prove I stole anything from anyone, Richard said, but there was no confidence in his voice anymore. Actually, I replied, I can prove all of it. Patricia was very thorough and careful in her investigation, and signed statements from your girlfriends are particularly helpful in divorce court. The look he gave me could have frozen the sun. This isn't over, Helen. Not by a long shot. Yes, I said calmly. It is over. Now get out of my house before I call the police. He left, slamming the door so hard the windows shook and rattled, and Lisa collapsed back onto my couch crying. Mom, I'm so sorry I didn't believe you before. I should have listened when you tried to warn me. You couldn't have known, sweetheart. He was very good at lying and manipulating everyone around him. How did you know to investigate him? Did you just have a bad feeling? I sat down next to her and held her hand tight. Because no wife watches her husband change completely and doesn't ask questions. And when Linda called me, I knew I had to protect myself and find the truth. Linda called you first before you investigated. She tried to tell me the truth, and at first I didn't believe her either. So she agreed to help me find proof. Lisa was quiet for a long moment, processing everything that had happened. He's going to try to take everything in the divorce, isn't he? Including Grandpa's cottage. He's going to try his best, but he's going to find out that Helen Martinez didn't build a life without having some protection and backup plans. What do you mean by that? I smiled and pulled out another folder, this one much thicker than the first one. I mean, your grandfather taught me a thing or two about protecting family property, and Patricia found some very interesting information about how cheating spouses lose their rights to shared property when fraud is involved. Lisa stared at me like she was seeing me as a completely different person. Mom, you're kind of amazing when you need to be. Sweetheart, I said, patting her hand, you have no idea what mothers are capable of. The divorce started exactly as I'd predicted it would. Richard hired the most expensive lawyer in Portland and immediately filed papers demanding half of everything I owned, plus monthly support payments, plus money for emotional suffering. His lawyer, a tough woman named Barbara Stone, actually had the nerve to call me on the phone. Mrs. Martinez, I represent your husband in the divorce case. I understand you've been spreading some rather serious lies about my client. I haven't been spreading anything, I said pleasantly. I simply told the truth about the man I married. Truthful information that was obtained through illegal ways. Hearing investigators to spy on my client, invasion of his privacy, possibly theft of his phone records. My client has grounds for a big lawsuit against you personally, Mrs. Martinez. I almost laughed out loud. Ms. Stone, I think you should speak with your client about his girlfriends and the money he stole before you threaten me with lawsuits. Mrs. Martinez, I'm going to be very clear with you. My client is entitled to half of your assets and property, and that includes your inheritance from your father's estate. If you interfere with these divorce proceedings, I will make sure you lose that cottage and everything else you own. How interesting. Does your client happen to mention that he's not actually entitled to any inheritance because it's held in a special trust that specifically excludes cheating spouses? There was a long pause on the phone line. What trust are you talking about? The one my father established when I got married 38 years ago. The one that protects family property from exactly this kind of situation. I'm surprised Richard didn't know about it when he was planning to take everything. Another pause, longer this time. I'll need to see legal papers proving this trust exists. Of course, my lawyer will provide copies during the legal discovery process, along with all the documentation about Richard's affairs and the signed statements from the women he gave our money to. Stone hung up without another word, and I smiled to myself. 3 days later, Richard showed up at my house again. This time he was alone and he looked desperate and exhausted. We need to talk right now, he said when I opened the door. I don't think we have anything left to discuss, Richard. Please, just 5 minutes of your time. I'm begging you. Against my better judgment, I let him inside one last time. He stood in my living room looking around like he was trying to memorize everything for the last time. You've won, Helen, he said finally. Is that what you want to hear? You've successfully destroyed my life and my relationship with Lisa. Congratulations. I didn't destroy anything, Richard. I simply showed the truth about what was already happening. You know I'll never find anyone else now because of what you did. Everyone knows what happened. You've made sure I'll be alone for the rest of my life. That stung a little bit because there was some truth in his words. But he'd done this to himself, not me. You'll survive somehow, I said. And maybe eventually you'll learn to be honest with people. Will I? Because right now I have no money, no home, and no family who wants to talk to me. I hadn't known about him having no money, but I also didn't feel sorry for him. What do you want, Richard? Why did you really come here? I want you to give me some money, enough to start over somewhere far away from here. In exchange, I'll disappear completely from your life. No long divorce fight, no court battle, no lawsuits against you. I'll sign whatever papers your lawyer wants and vanish forever like I never existed. How much money are we talking about? $800,000 in cash. I actually did laugh then, loud and long. You must be joking. I know about the legal trouble I'm in. I know about the women threatening to sue me for fraud. If this divorce gets messy and goes to trial, all of that will come out in public. The newspapers will write stories about it. Your name will be connected to mine in every article about cheating husbands. He was right about that. A big public trial would be embarrassing for both of us. And if I pay you $800,000, you'll just disappear forever. I'll move to a different state far away. Start fresh somewhere new where nobody knows me. You can get a quiet divorce for normal reasons, and your name stays out of the newspapers completely. I pretended to think about his offer carefully. That's quite a generous offer you're making. But I have a different idea instead that might work better. What different idea do you have? Nothing. You get absolutely nothing from me. You sign the divorce papers accepting full responsibility for destroying our marriage. You give up any claim to my money or property or the cottage, and you disappear anyway without getting paid a single dollar. Why would I possibly agree to something like that? I walked to my desk and pulled out yet another folder I'd been saving. The folder I'd been keeping for exactly this moment. Richard's face went completely pale and white when he saw it, because Patricia's investigation turned up something very interesting about the money you gave to Linda and Jennifer. What are you talking about now? Bank records showing you took money from our joint account without permission and gave it to other women. That's called theft and fraud, Richard. And according to these records, you did it over 50 times in 3 years. That's felony crime that could send you to prison. That's impossible, he said, but his voice was shaking. Nobody could have gotten those records without breaking laws. The records are very clear, Richard. You withdrew money, sometimes thousands of dollars at a time, and gave it to women you were having affairs with. But according to the law, that's stealing from your spouse, which is a serious crime in this state. You signed papers saying that account was for family expenses only, remember? Richard sat down hard in my chair, all the color draining from his face completely. Those records don't prove anything about my intentions. They prove you lied and stole repeatedly. They prove you committed fraud against your own wife. And if the police look at Linda's case with this new evidence, they'll probably investigate Jennifer's situation too. And who knows what else they'll find when they start digging deeper into Richard Martinez's financial history. What do you want me to do? He whispered, his voice barely loud enough to hear. I want you to sign a confession admitting everything you did wrong. A confession admitting to what exactly? To fraud and theft. To knowingly taking money from our joint account to give to women you were cheating with. Nothing about the emotional pain, nothing about the years of lies, just a simple admission that you stole from me and committed fraud. If I sign that paper, I could go to prison for many years. Maybe you will, or maybe the prosecutor will be satisfied with you paying back the money and doing community service work, especially if you cooperate fully and leave Oregon permanently and never come back. He stared at the floor for what felt like hours. And if I refuse to sign it, then I give these bank records to the Portland police along with all the other evidence Patricia found about your crimes. And we'll see how well your expensive lawyer handles a criminal investigation on top of a divorce case. The silence felt heavy and thick between us for several long minutes. Finally, he looked up at me with something that might have been respect mixed with fear and anger. You really are a terrifying woman when you want to be, Helen. I'm a wife protecting herself and her daughter. That makes me dangerous to people like you who hurt their families. He signed the confession that same afternoon at my kitchen table, his hand shaking the whole time. Within 1 week, he'd filed for divorce accepting full blame and giving up all claims to my property and money. Within 1 month, he'd left Oregon completely and moved somewhere far away. Lisa never knew about the confession or the bank records showing the theft. As far as she knew, Richard had just decided to leave quietly rather than fight a battle he knew he couldn't win. She was hurt and confused and angry for a long time, but she was safe from his lies. The crying at night stopped after a few weeks went by. The angry phone calls to Richard's disconnected number ended when she finally accepted he was truly gone. Slowly, very slowly, my daughter started to heal and become happy again. Mom, she said one afternoon about 4 months after Richard left, I owe you the biggest apology anyone could ever give. You don't owe me anything at all, sweetheart. Nothing. Yes, I do owe you. I chose him over you at the wedding. I let him convince me you were jealous and crazy when you were just trying to protect yourself and tell the truth. I let him throw you out of my wedding in front of everyone who matters to us. You were confused, and he was very good at manipulating people. People do really stupid things when they're being lied to by someone they trust. I hurt you so badly, Mom. Really badly. And you still saved yourself and showed me the truth anyway, even though I was mean to you. I thought about that day at the lake cottage, imagining Richard's face when he opened that box, and realized I'd trapped him completely with evidence. I thought about the look in his eyes when he signed that confession, knowing he'd finally met someone stronger and smarter than his lies. That's what mothers do, I said gently. We protect ourselves and our children even when it's hard, and even when they don't want to believe the truth at first. How did you know he was lying about everything, even before Linda called you on the phone? I smiled, remembering the first time I'd noticed Richard coming home late smelling like perfume. Instinct mostly, just a mother's feeling. Something about him felt wrong and different. He was happier when he was away from home, sadder when he was with me, more interested in his phone than his family. What made you finally sure he was cheating? He started treating me like I was invisible and stupid, like I didn't matter anymore and my opinions were worthless. When someone loves you, they care about your thoughts and feelings. When someone's using you, they just want you to stay quiet and not ask questions. Lisa nodded slowly, understanding finally settling in her mind. I should have seen the signs earlier when he was mean to you. No, sweetheart. You should have been able to trust that your father was a good man who loved his family. The fact that you couldn't see through his lies just means you believed the best about him, which is what daughters are supposed to do. We sat quietly for a while, watching the sun go down through my window, painting the sky beautiful shades of orange and pink and purple. Finally, Lisa spoke again, her voice small and worried. Mom, how do I make sure I don't end up in a marriage like yours? How do I trust Marcus after seeing what Dad did to you? Carefully and slowly, I said, but you will trust him because Marcus is nothing like your father. Because the alternative is spending your whole life alone and scared of love. And that's exactly what your father's lies would want for you, to poison you against happiness so completely that you'd never risk your heart again with anyone good. Maybe being alone and single would be safer for me than trusting someone. Safer, yes, but not happier or more fulfilling. And I didn't raise you to choose safe over happy and joyful, Lisa. Besides, I added with a small smile, next time you'll have the advantage of a very careful mother who knows exactly how to spot a liar and run background checks. She laughed for the first time in many months, and the sound filled my heart with relief and pure joy. My daughter was going to be okay and whole again. It would take time and healing, but she was going to be okay. And if anyone else ever tried to hurt her the way Richard hurt us, well, they'd find out what I'd learned about myself during this whole terrible experience. There's nothing more dangerous in the entire world than a mother who's discovered she's capable of anything to protect her child and herself. 8 months later, I started going to a book club at the library where I worked. There was a kind man there named George who always asked interesting questions about the books we read. He was a retired teacher, and the first thing he did when we talked was show me pictures of his grandchildren and his late wife. "This is my wife Mary at our 50th anniversary party before she passed away," he said sadly, scrolling through his phone. "And this is my daughter with her 3 kids. And here's my son at his promotion ceremony last year." Real family, real history, real life that could be checked and verified by anyone who cared to look closely. "He seems very nice," Lisa told me later when I mentioned George. "He is nice," I said. "And I know what you're thinking." I smiled. "And you had Patricia run a background check on him already, didn't you?" George William Chen, 69 years old, born in Seattle, taught elementary school for 40 years. Wife died 2 years ago from cancer. No criminal record of any kind, and his biggest worry is whether his grandchildren are eating enough vegetables. "Suspicious," Lisa said with a smile. "He sounds entirely too normal and boring." I know, right? It's strange talking to someone who's actually honest about their whole life and doesn't hide secrets. 4 months later, George asked if he could take me to dinner at a nice restaurant. We went to a quiet place by the water, and he was a perfect gentleman the whole time. "Helen, I really enjoy spending time with you," he said nervously over dessert. "And I know you've been hurt before by someone you trusted. I just want you to know that I would never lie to you or hide things from you. I'm too old for games and too tired for secrets. What makes you different from other men?" I asked him gently. He smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made his whole face look warm and kind and trustworthy. "I've already had my great love with Mary. She was my everything for 50 years. I'm not looking to replace her or find someone to take care of me. I just want someone to talk to about books and life and maybe hold hands with while we watch the sunset. Someone who understands that love at our age is about companionship and respect, not games or money." That night after he drove me home, I called Patricia one final time. "I need one last favor from you," I said. "Let me guess, George Chen. You already ran a check on him, didn't you?" "The moment you mentioned his name to me. And what did you find?" "He's exactly what he appears to be, Helen. A genuinely good man from a good family who happens to enjoy your company. No hidden past, no secret wives, no mysterious bank accounts. His late wife, Mary, died of cancer, just like he said. His biggest scandal is a library book he forgot to return in 1987. So he's perfect and too good to be true. He's normal and kind, which probably seems perfect after what you went through with Richard." I hung up feeling something I hadn't felt in many, many years: hope and peace. I'd found someone who valued me for myself, not for what I owned or what I could give him. 1 year later, George and I are still together, taking things slowly and carefully. We go to book club, have dinner sometimes, and talk about everything and nothing. He's met Lisa and Marcus, and they love him. Most importantly, he treats me with respect and kindness every single day. If you're watching this story, I want you to remember something important. Never underestimate a woman protecting herself and her family. We're capable of anything when we're hurt or betrayed by people we trusted. And to anyone out there thinking you can lie to your spouse without consequences, think again and be warned. Because somewhere out there is a woman like me, and we're always paying attention. Thanks for listening to my story on Anon Voices. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters to all of us.